Hunt. Capture. Trial. Justice. From 1976 to 1977, one man's killing spree would bring the city of New York to a complete standstill. All told, he would attack 8 times, wounding 7 people and killing 6. This is how a $25 parking ticket brought down the Son of Sam. But Son of Sam wasn't what the media originally called the elusive serial killer. He was referred to as the .44 caliber killer due to his choice of weapon. The killer had used a .44 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog revolver in each of his previous 5 attacks that had many other similarities. Several of his victims had shoulder-length dark hair and were shot while sitting in their cars late at night, many of them couples. On the night of April 17th, 1977, the .44 caliber killer struck again. 20-year-old Alexander Isau and 18-year-old Valentina Suriani were sitting in their car late one night when they became the latest victims. This 6th shooting fit his MO in every way, except for one. This time, the killer left a note. He addressed the note to one of the detectives assigned to the task force in charge of finding him, letting the NYPD know that while they might not know who the killer was, he certainly knew who they were. The killer's note began,
"Dear Captain Joseph Borelli, I am deeply hurt by your calling me a woman hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the Son of Sam."
From this point on, the serial killer, once called the .44 caliber killer, became known as the Son of Sam. But it was the final lines of the note that were the most chilling.
"Police, let me haunt you with these words. I'll be back. I'll be back. To be interpreted as bang, 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 bang. Oh, yours in the murder, Mr. Monster."
The frenzied months that followed would be dubbed the Summer of Sam. Over 300 police from different boroughs were on the case at one point. Late-night spots became less crowded, and women began to dye their dark hair blonde, despite several of the Son of Sam's victims having survived. The police couldn't get a clear description of what the killer looked like. And to add to the panic, the Son of Sam wasn't done writing. In a letter addressed to Jimmy Breslin, a New York Daily News reporter, the Son of Sam asked,
"Tell me, Jim, what will you have for July 29th?
Breslin would publish a redacted version of this letter, along with a direct plea to the Son of Sam, on June 5th, 1977. Breslin wrote,
"The only way for the killer to leave this special torment is to give himself up to me, if he trusts me, to the police, and receive both help and safety. The time to do it, however, is now. We are too close to the July 29th that the killer mentions in his letter. It is the first anniversary of the death of Donna Loria."
Tragically, the Son of Sam did not heed Breslin's appeals, and on June 26, 1977, he struck again. 20-year-old Sal Lupo and 17-year-old Judy Placido were sitting in a car late one night when they were approached by a man with a gun. Judy Placido had long, dark hair. Miraculously, and despite the 4 shots fired at them, both Lupo and Placido survived the attack. Despite the seeming threat made in the letter to Breslin, July 29th came and went without incident. But then in the late night hours of July 31st, 1977, Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violanti, both 20 years old, were sitting in Violanti's car. But that very night, Cecilia Davis was walking her dog Snowball around that same Brooklyn neighborhood. A man had creeped past her holding what she thought might be a gun. Moments later, gunshots rang out. The next morning, Davis learned that 2 people had been shot while sitting in their car. Could the man she witnessed the night before be the Son of Sam? Davis told her neighbors, Stephen and Tina Zaccarelli, what she'd seen. They urged Davis to go to the police. The police fixated on one detail of Davis's statement that would ultimately be the undoing of the Son of Sam. Davis noticed that 2 officers had been handing out parking tickets on the night of the murder, and one of those parking tickets had been given by officers Jeffrey Logan and Michael Cantanillo to a 1970 Ford Galaxy for parking too close to a fire hydrant. Detective James Justice investigated the ticket and found that the car was registered to a house in Yonkers, 30 miles away from Brooklyn. The car belonged to a 24-year-old postal worker named David Berkowitz. Justice reached out to the Yonkers Police Department, only to learn that they'd already had their suspicions about Berkowitz. Berkowitz's neighbor had contacted the Yonkers Police Department, believing that he was the son of Sam. He also claimed that it was Berkowitz who had shot his black Labrador retriever, Harvey. Don't worry, Harvey survived. Around 10 p.m. on August 10, 1977, Detective John M. Filatico, along with the NYPD, went to Berkowitz's home in Yonkers, where they found the 1970 Ford Galaxy. After Berkowitz exited his apartment and got into his car, the detectives approached him, guns drawn, in a scene chillingly reminiscent of the Son of Sam's own routines. A paper bag containing the now infamous .44 caliber Bulldog revolver and a handful of bullets sat next to Berkowitz on the front seat. When Detective Filatico asked who he was, the killer reportedly replied with a smile.
I'm Sam.
Berkowitz was found sane and ordered to stand trial following a psychological evaluation. On May 8, 1978, David Berkowitz pleaded guilty. Berkowitz asserted that it was none other than his neighbor's black Labrador retriever, Harvey, who had told him to kill those people.
I thought I killed you, Mr. Blackthorne! How did you get in here? Leave me alone!
Berkowitz is now serving 6 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life at the Shawangunk Correctional Facility in upstate New York. Harvey was a good boy for the rest of his life.